All for one. All for one, Oru-Fo-Wan, surname Shigaraki, is the overarching antagonist of the My Hero Academia manga and anime series. He is the founder and benefactor of the League of Villains. Once Japan's most powerful villain, and All Might's arch-nemesis, his full identity is unknown. His ultimate goal is to steal his younger brother's quirk, One for All, the only quirk that can oppose him, shaping Tamura Shigaraki into the perfect vessel before eventually conquering the rest of the world. He was imprisoned in Tartarus after his second defeat at All Might's hands until he escaped several months later, now single-mindedly focused on destroying the ninth wielder of One for All, Izuku Midoriya, to complete his centuries-long plan. Appearance. After being mortally injured by All Might years ago, All for One's face was entirely made up of scar tissue, extending from above his upper lip and covering his entire head and the back of his neck. As such, he had no visible nose, ears, hair, or eyes, though the outlines of his eye sockets were visible. All for One was blind, but used an infrared quirk to see, and he would sense the directions of vibrations in the area around him, similar to echolocation. There is a small hole in each palm of his hands, which is how he steals and transfers quirks. In the past, All for One was a man of gigantic stature, who possessed strong, imposing features, short white hair, and luminous red eyes. He usually wears a dark suit over a white shirt. When All for One left his secret hideout during the Kamino incident, he donned a navy blue, skull-like gas mask with angular tubes at the top, a wide collar-like life support system around his neck with additional pipes connecting in the front and back, presumably to help him breathe. For his confrontation with Izuku, he wears a smoother skull mask with a much wider, sleeker collar. He also wears a patterned vest underneath his suit. During his battle with Endeavor and Hawks, All for One uses a reverse-engineered replica of the quirk-destroying drug to restore his appearance to that of before his first fight with All Might, as well as stealing a cape from a hero to cover himself up. Personality. All for One is a subtle, sadistic, and malevolent man, who likes to rule from the shadows and enjoys himself at the expense of people, before discarding them. In the past, All for One did use his powers to help people, but in exchange for their servitude. Once they were no longer able to follow his orders, All for One would callously abandon them, and those who defied his will were purged by his followers. All for One exhibits extreme signs of megalomania and even traits of an outright god complex, comparing himself to the demon lord he read in comic books, while also having relished in his total power over Japan and seeing himself as a higher being. He also displays signs of kleptomania, claiming that he can't resist stealing a powerful quirk when the opportunity presents itself. In the past, All for One cared for his younger brother Yoichi, although he was condescending towards him. He mocked his frail brother, saying that without power, it was impossible to assert one's ideals. All for One has a firm contempt for ideals of justice and morality, dismissing them as arbitrary beliefs of other people that shackle personal freedom. Presently, All for One's greatest obsession is to steal One for All, a quirk that originated from Yoichi, and the one quirk that he cannot steal. Similar to how All Might yearned to become a symbol of justice, All for One sought to be an all-powerful evil, being inspired by the comic books he read with his brother in their childhood. He reveals that his ultimate goal is to use his power to thwart humanity's future, as it fits with the Demon Lord character he envisions himself as. All for One is a patient mentor towards his protege, Tamura. He offers constructive criticism and encouragement to Tamura whenever the latter fails. He also prefers to teach Tamura by providing him opportunities and different experiences that he can learn from. However, this benevolence is a facade, because All for One views Tamura as a valuable tool to steal One for All. This is made apparent during the Paranormal Liberation War, when All for One forcibly possesses Tamura despite the latter's protests, revealing that he sees Tamura as a vessel rather than a successor. All for One is incredibly manipulative towards his potential vessels, most notably Tamura, whom he rechristened and gave his surname to, willing to put on a caring and even fatherly guise while simultaneously nurturing his dark side and murderous impulses from a young age, effectively grooming him into a villain. All for One despises those who persistently defy him, especially the users of One for All. He loathes All Might in particular for ruining his syndicate and crippling him. He is also a firm believer in the hatred of the heart, believing it to be a very strong source of power. When mentoring Tamura, All for One gave him the hands of his deceased relatives as a way for the negative feelings in his heart to always remain close, while also giving him a sense of comfort. When encountering the previous wills of One for All in the mental world, the vestige of All for One was not troubled when Tamura started to loathe him, stating that this hatred was only more fitting for the symbol of fear. As much as he encourages Tamura's hatred, All for One is also highly derisive and mocking towards his enemies as a means of getting under their skin and or causing them to drop their guard. His taunts and expertise in psychological warfare are enough to enrage even the strongest of heroes, such as All Might and Endeavor. Even when outnumbered, All for One remains unshakably calm, willing to slaughter enemies with his tremendous power. He often regards lesser opponents as fodder rather than actual threats, though he is willing to take interest in their quirks to see if they are worthy of taking for himself. Due to his immense power and confidence, All for One has a calm and condescending demeanor, confident even when thwarted and imprisoned. Later, the villain reveals to Dabi that he never depends on a single plan to achieve a goal and has multiple contingencies. Despite his hegemony, All for One presents himself as polite, sympathetic, and generous towards his associates and underlings alike. However, this is only glib that All for One employs to subtly manipulate people into following his bidding, showing no concern for them once they are captured or outlive their usefulness. He admits to Dabi that he sees people as nothing more than disposable tools. Should they fail him, he shrugs and moves on to the next alternative, though he is willing to sadistically enjoy it when they receive their comeuppance, be it from him or someone else. Even if his followers fail him, All for One admits that it's worth seeing what entertainment they can bring before their downfall and will even tempt them into helping him before watching them suffer, showing his twisted willingness to toy with people's lives while having a blatant disregard for whatever happens to them. Thanks to a combination of quirks, All for One can detect lies and hostility, with which he can preemptively eliminate traitors. Due to his long life, as well as his status and experience, he is well informed about almost every significant figure among heroes and villains. While All for One is completely selfish, he is willing to die for his ideals and will not spare any effort to ensure that his idea of a symbol of evil will continue even after his death. While he wants to possess Tamura's body for his own ends, All for One does not mind if Tamura manages to kill him, as long as he continues his legacy. Similarly, he has no problem with sacrificing his own sense of self and allowing his consciousness to merge with Tamura's in order to become a new evil force entirely. As a side effect of his own quirk, All for One explains that he often suffers from nightmares where the people from whom he stole quirks appear in his dreams and hurl insults at him. Despite his remorseless personality, All for One admits that such episodes leave him very discouraged at times. He scoffs at the idea of him being able to feel guilt, however, believing it to be a trait of inferior humans. As further proof of his detachment, he has repeatedly denied blame for any of his actions, instead laying the fault on his followers who only wanted to support him or who otherwise sided with his plans for their own reasons. He does this despite the evident fact that he had manipulated all parties involved into acting on his behalf with honey-laced promises, while also taking advantage of their personal and emotional vulnerabilities to coerce them into enacting his will, persistently refusing to admit that he is to be held responsible, while at the same time gloating about his results and his alleged power to achieve his goals, grinning with hypocritical delight. While it was initially believed that his followers were in fact carrying out his orders out of loyalty to him, it's revealed that there are those who obey him out of fear of reprisal, a strong rebuttal of All for One's belief that his supporters are acting out of their own will and possible evidence of either a deluded sense of support to his ideals, or downright despicable lies to deflect blame. It's implied that the reason he requires the hatred and will of Tamura to successfully steal One for All in the first place is because he himself does not carry any hate, or at least nowhere near as much as needed. Hawks questions why after so many years of chasing down One for All he would not deeply resent the users to that great of an extent, and theorizes that this is because there is something missing in his soul, pointing out how he is always smiling. This is supported by the fact that, no matter how cruel or sadistic his actions or those who fight him or thwart his ambitions, he never seems to hold or exhibit true malice or emotions. This could be due to him being so selfish, he literally cannot care about anything beyond himself enough to form the required attachments that are needed to create a powerful grudge or strong feeling of revenge. However, he was shown to be crying before killing the second user of One for All, having been provoked somehow to display this emotion. Although All for One grew a very strong contempt and hatred towards All Might for having permanently damaged his body and taking away his rule and status over Japan, he later admits that he has lost all interest in All Might and is now focused on the current One for All wielder, Izuku Midoriya. It appears that All for One is so egomaniacal, to the point where only those who persistently stand in his way and are strong enough to defy him warrant both his constant attention and hatred. He is that emotionally inclined towards his goals, that he is either dismissive or manipulative towards all else, seeing people either as obstacles in his way or pawns for him to manipulate for his own gain. Despite how All for One is always perceived to be calm and composed, there are a few instances that have agitated him to the point of becoming emotionally unstable, especially when his infallible belief that he is above all others is threatened. When someone challenges his authority, specifically those he deems to be insignificant, it can rile him up with anger and frustration. These include Star and Stripe after Tamura's attempt to steal New Order had failed, and people like Kyoka Jiro and the second user of One for All who refuse to back down despite how significantly weaker they are in comparison to him. Abilities. Overall abilities, All for One is Japan's most powerful villain. Thanks to the Life Force quirk, All for One is virtually immortal, and has been active since the emergence of quirks. He has collected numerous quirks with an extensive range of applications and can combine them as he pleases. This, along with his ability to steal any quirk from his opponent, makes All for One nigh impossible to defeat. The villain will employ any means necessary to hurt his opponent before killing them. In his prime, All for One easily defeated powerful pro-heroes, making himself appear unequaled and unstoppable. The only individuals that can effectively oppose the symbol of evil are the inheritors of One for All, a quirk All for One himself inadvertently created, and the only quirk he can't steal, though he tried to steal it from Daigoro Banjo and N, twice. All for One sought each One for All user, excluding Hikage Shinomori, and easily killed them by overwhelming them with his barrage of quirks. However, All for One was unable to steal One for All, nor prevent any of the users from passing the quirk. Nevertheless, All for One remained unchallenged until the rise of All Might. All Might possessed the necessary strength to challenge All for One, and the two opponents fought a bloody duel. Although All Might sustained crippling injuries, he succeeded in defeating All for One, forcing the villain to rely on a life support system. 6 years later, despite losing all his senses and unable to recover from his injuries, All for One was far from weak. He single-handedly overpowered Endeavor, Best Jeanist, Edge Shot, Empty Lady, and Gran Torino with little effort, as well as fight on par with All Might until the hero was exhausted out of his muscle form. With his ultimate quirk combination, coupled with All Might's declining power, All for One nearly succeeded in killing All Might, but the latter summoned his willpower and used the last of his power to knock out the symbol of evil. Immense strength, All for One is extremely strong, being able to easily trade blows with All Might, whose physical strength was thought to be unrivaled. In his zenith, he was able to effortlessly overpower Prenomu Hood, though the latter was weakened from battling a clock and his allies. Immense speed, All for One has incredible speed, as shown when he completely destroyed the Nomu factory, defeated the 4 pro-heroes that were there, and dealt significant damage to the surrounding area in a split second. He also has sharp reflexes, being fast enough to react to All Might's punches and casually dodge attacks from Edge Shot, who can transform faster than the speed of sound. Immense durability. Despite being in a disheveled state with severe injuries, All for One possesses an inhuman amount of durability. During the entirety of his second battle with All Might, he, unlike the latter, never flinched or otherwise screamed from pain, proving that the symbol of evil can withstand the symbol of peace's destructive blows with monstrous resilience. Another testament of his sturdiness was when All for One survived All Might's United States of Smash, though was rendered unconscious afterward. Enhanced senses. Due to All for One being blind, his hearing improved immensely, as he is able to perceive his surroundings by sound. He can also sense vibrations in the air. An example of this was displayed when All for One quickly dispelled a flame attack from Endeavor, who had arrived on the scene with Edge Shot. However, this ability does have its limits, which is shown when he is placed in Tartarus. The lack of sound and vibrations leaves him completely oblivious to his surroundings. Genius intellect. All for One possesses an extraordinary level of intellect, most likely due to his advanced age and life experience. He ruled Japan from the shadows for over 100 years, with most of the public being ignorant of his existence. He is well informed about current affairs and about significant figures among both heroes and villains. He also possesses a vast knowledge of the quirks he's stolen, which enables him to use them effectively. While condescending towards his opponents, All for One is an expert at observing his enemies and exploiting their flaws. Another terrifying aspect of All for One's intelligence is his ability to prey on people's insecurities. Aware that All Might still mourned his mentor, Nana Shimura, All for One used that to taunt the hero by insulting her, as well as reveal that Tamura is Nana's grandson. Afterward, he exposed All Might's emaciated form to the public to demoralize them as well as humiliate the hero. From observing All Might, All for One deduced that he no longer possesses One for All, and Izuku Midoriya inherited the quirk. In the aftermath of the Kamino incident, it was revealed that All for One anticipated the possibility of his second defeat at the hands of All Might, and knew if that were to happen, he would be unable to transfer his All for One quirk onto Tamura as planned. To ensure the inheritance of his power was fulfilled, the symbol of evil, prior to resurfacing, had his quirk replicated by his physician, Kyodai Garaki, leaving All for One with the copied variant, and the doctor with the original variant, which would then later be passed down to Tamura. When attacking Tartarus with his army of high-end Nomu, All for One was able to overcome the prison's nearly impenetrable defenses through a coordinated attack from the outside, since his consciousness took control of Tamura's body, and inside, where his original body was housed. He successfully freed all the prisoners in Tartarus, including his original body. Given his inability to steal One for All, and knowledge of quirks being imprinted with the original user's consciousness, it has been discussed that All for One primarily grooms Tamura's negative emotions so the former's will inside of the All for One quirk can more easily inhabit Tamura's modified chassis, all in a final attempt for the original symbol of evil to acquire One for All. Indomitable will, befitting his epithet, the symbol of evil, All for One possesses a malefic volition so resolute that he was able to easily amass hordes of followers in his long life through sheer influence. Within and outside the battlefield, All for One is entirely unfazed by unforeseen spectacles that would leave him otherwise intimidated or unhinged, and he commonly maintains his complacent attitude even when he seems to be at a disadvantage. His presence has shown to be so malicious and dark. Izuku, Tenya Ida, Momo Yaoyorozu, Shoto Todoroki, and Eijiro Kirishima were completely paralyzed with fear, despite the quintet previously experiencing life-or-death situations and encountering lethal villains. All for One's will is also great enough for his original quirk to overwhelm Tamura Shigaraki's own willpower and possess the young villain like a puppet. This is convenient as All for One plans to transfer his consciousness into Tamura, intending to become a more powerful being. However, in spite of having his ambitions thwarted time and again by users of One for All and the circumstance of All Might destroying his body and permanently crippling him, his hatred, if any, isn't strong enough to allow him to override the will of One for All or its user. Even disregarding the physical requirements to take One for All into himself, he seems to lack the emotional resolve to overpower the wills of the spirits in One for All. This seems to indicate that while his will is supremely strong when it comes to resisting things that might change him personally, his sense of self/personality, he doesn't seem to care enough about anyone or anything to have an emotional investment to strengthen his will. Tellingly, it's only when Tamura is in a negative state and consumed by rage that All for One can take control, as rage causes people to become unstable and forget themselves. Quirks. All for One, Oru Fo1, All for One's quirk allows him to steal other people's quirks, leaving them quirkless, and wield the quirks as his own. All for One can also redistribute his stolen quirks to other people. His multiple quirks grant him a very wide variety of options in combat, and he can combine his stolen quirks to create compound attacks with devastating effects. However, he cannot steal the original user's quirk proficiency and is therefore limited by his own skill with his stolen powers. Because of this, he prefers to steal quirks that rely on raw power, rather than ones that take practice and experience to master. While he can steal any quirk, All for One's body cannot properly contain quirks of newer generations, which is the reason why he sought Dr. Garaki's medical research. He also mentions having frequent nightmares where the consciousnesses of the people he stole quirks from appear before him. To top it off, All for One's permanently injured body puts a limit on how many quirks he can take and use in succession, making him far weaker than he was in his prime. Shortly before the Kamino incident, his quirk was duplicated by Dr. Garaki and the original version of it was given to Tamura, while All for One kept the copied version. A conscious vestige of All for One remains within the original quirk and has the capabilities of overriding Tamura's will and control his body, though it's currently unknown how much of a connection the vestige and original All for One have to each other. The copied version of All for One doesn't give him as much command, however, meaning that vestiges from stolen quirks can resist the user from within. All for One has stolen a wide variety of quirks with his ability, including Search, Sachi. All for One stole this quirk from Ragdoll. With this quirk, he can observe and monitor up to 100 people at a time, including their location and weak points. In addition to infrared, this quirk makes up for All for One's blindness. Warping, Tenso. All for One can produce a black liquid that acts as a portal, similar in nature to Kurogiri's warp gate. It appears he can use this quirk on a large scale as he produces multiple black liquid portals that transport dozens of Nomu to the League of Villains hideout. This quirk, however, has many limitations. It's not a coordinate-based warping and can only warp things to and from his location, and it only works if it's used on someone with whom he has a close relationship. Air Cannon, Kuki o Ashidesu, All for One releases an air shockwave from his arms. This quirk is further strengthened by its combined usage with spring-like limbs and several other power-up quirks. Spring-like limbs, Kinkatsu Banika. This quirk allows All for One to coil his muscles in order to enhance his physical strength, and can also be used to augment other quirks, like Air Cannon. Rivet Stab, Byatatsu, All for One transforms his fingers into black tendrils that have red prominent cracked lines that extend from the user's fingers, although they can also emerge from other parts of the body such as the spine. These appendages can easily pierce bodies, however, the user may choose whether to wound the target or not, as seen when All for One used it with forced quirk activation, without harming the target. Forced quirk activation, Kozii Kaioshin Hatsudo, All for One can activate a target's quirk against their will, whether they are conscious or not. All for One has used this quirk in combination with Rivet Stab. Impact Recoil, Shogeki Hanten, this quirk seemingly enables All for One to completely reflect the impact of an attack back to the attacker. Multiplier, Zashoku, this quirk seemingly multiplies the number of All for One's arms. Hypertrophy, Hidaika, this quirk seemingly enlarges All for One's arm. Rivet, Bio, this quirk possibly generates rivet-like growths on All for One's arm. Spear-like bones, Sakatsu, this quirk generates drill-like bone structures on All for One's arm. Kinetic Booster, Shunpatsu Ryoku, this unnamed quirk seemingly increases the amount of kinetic energy All for One creates and releases. All for One has 4 copies of this quirk. Strength Enhancer, Ryaryaku Zokyo, the unnamed quirk seemingly enhances All for One's physical strength. All for One has 3 copies of this quirk. Infrared, Sekigazen, this quirk allows All for One to sense his surroundings using infrared senses. He uses this quirk to compensate for his blindness. However, the amount that he is able to sense is very limited. Life Force, Sesei, this quirk was given to him by Dr. Garaki, and has allowed him to possess supernatural longevity in lifespan. Radio Waves, Denpa, All for One can disrupt radio waves and cause communicators to malfunction. Hard Flame Fan, Gyoka-sen, this quirk allows All for One to generate a wall of flames to act as defense. Unnamed Telekinesis Quirk, this quirk allows All for One the ability to levitate objects with his hand. He used it to levitate his medical device once freed from Tartarus. Unnamed Levitation Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to levitate in the air. Unnamed Lie Detector Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to sense whether a person is lying or if they possess any semblance of ill will. The quirk got stronger through the mixing of various other quirks throughout the years. The quirk was stolen from Naomasa Tsukachi's ancestor. Unnamed Razor Blade Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to create crescent-shaped razor blades. Unnamed Ooze Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to generate a muck-looking substance which can cover and dissolve an area. Unnamed Mouth Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to morph the flesh on his hand into a mouth which can be shot out to attack. Unnamed Vibration Detection Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to enhance his senses about his surroundings. He uses it along with infrared to compensate for his lack of vision and hearing, while at the same time giving him a superhuman awareness of the world around him. Unnamed Glue Quirk, this quirk allows All for One to generate a glue-like substance which can be used to instantly joint broken pieces together. He used it along with Rivet Stab to try and repair his broken mask. Unnamed Hardening Quirk, this quirk somewhat allows All for One to harden his skin exceptionally. He stole this quirk from a fighter in the Underground Masquerade. Former Quirks. Quirks obtained via All for One and then passed on to others. Power Stockpiling, an unnamed quirk which allowed All for One to stockpile power. He gave it to his younger brother to try and force him to his side, causing it to merge with his quirk and create the quirk One for All. Naval Laser, Nibiru Reza, this quirk allows the user to project twinkling laser beams from their navel. This quirk was given to Yuga Aoima. Transforming Arms, Henyo Suruyud, this quirk allows the user to shapeshift their arms. This quirk was given to Hood to try and make him a better fighter. Mole, Magura, this quirk allows the user to grow mole-like claws from their fingers, as well as spines on their back, to dig through the earth. This quirk was given to Gigantomachia for the purpose of hiding underground. Overclock, Obakaraku, this quirk allows the user to stimulate their brain's perception of information, granting them enhanced speed, reflexes, and an improvement to their healing factor. This quirk was stolen from a clock and given to number 6. Muscle Augmentation, Kinniku Zokyo. This quirk allows the user to augment the power of their muscles, changing their appearance. This quirk was given to Wolfram to assist in his incident. Air Walk, Iwoku. This quirk is capable of allowing the user to levitate in mid-air. This quirk was given to Lady Nagant as payment to capture Izuku. Unnamed Self-Destruct Quirk. This quirk makes the user self-destruct in a big explosion. This quirk was secretly given to Lady Nagant in case she failed in her mission. Body Bulk, Goku. This quirk enlarges the user to a towering size, greatly increasing their strength. This quirk was given to Spinner to grant him extra power in the final war. Scale Mail, Tsukiramiru. This quirk covers the user with scale-like blades, along with increased strength and defense. This quirk was also given to Spinner at the same time as Body Bulk. Several unnamed quirks, All for One transferred several quirks to fighters in the Underground Masquerade, including an electricity-based power, beast-like traits, making the user turtle-like with a spiked shell and cannon on their back, granting the user wings in place of arms, giving the user arm sides, making the user wolf-like, a strength enhancer, and a reptilian transformation. It's also possible that he possessed some, if not all, of the quirks possessed by his Nomu, as well as Gigantomachia's additional quirks. It is also possible he still retains some of the transferred quirks as duplicates. Ultimate Moves. Ultimate Quirk Combination. All for One utilizes the strongest combination of quirks that he currently holds inside his body to greatly enhance his right arm, combining spring-like limbs, multiplier, hypertrophy, rivet, air walk, and spear-like bones, as well as 4 kinetic booster quirks and 3 strength enhancer quirks. This combination of quirks is what All for One attempted to use in order to kill All Might. Impact Recoil was later added to this combination to better his chances of defeating All Might. Equipment. Breathing Mask. All for One suffered serious damage in his battle against All Might and now has trouble breathing. He wears this mask to compensate. After escaping from Tartarus, All for One now uses an upgraded version of this mask after the previous one was destroyed by All Might. Both were created by Kyudai Garaki. Rewind Drug. Created by Kyudai based on the sample of the Shai Hasaikai's quirk-destroying drug, this version focuses on the original effect of rewind and restores All for One's body back to his prime state. However, it could only be used once as a last resort, as it will eventually rewind All for One out of existence. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.